should be starting. Hangout on air is live. I will make the post on photos worth seeing. The post is out and Fern disappeared. Where are you going? Where are you? Please wear pants. Please. Please wear pants, Fern.
Shut up, schmuck.
Oh, no, I'm your schmuck, huh?
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, you're not a schmuck. You are not a schmuck.
Julie. Oh, okay. Okay, it's
Wait,
out.
is it on here? Oh, yeah, YouTube.
And I have
I
have to reblog it to my blog as well because I realized that I accidentally reblogged the post yesterday to my own blog. So I have to post video to my own blog.
Oh, I always do. Yeah.
So
And to Luxlit.
I think
and
on reblogging our stuff ourselves, and we'll hit really big note counts.
Ooh, 3 people! Yay!
So okay,
let me heart it.
So I guess let's start the show.
Hello. All right, so hold on. Let me. Oh, let's do.
Hello and welcome to InConversation 17, July 14th of 2018. InConversation, or as it's called, The Fern Show. With me on the show, Fern, Cubian-Scholar, also admin of luxlit.net. And I have to apologize in advance for Fern, as usual. I should have done that already in the last shows. And as you can see, Fern is not wearing pants again. And I really, really have to apologize for this person. I don't even know him. My name's Pete. I like pictures. Fern, please sit down. Well, you can find mine on my blog, twoom.tumblr.com, and my other blog, 365, because I have to say that or else Fern will kick me. Say hi. Yeah, better. So today, what are we gonna do? We're gonna wrap up. No, not wrap up. We're gonna continue talking about what we talked about in the last show. When was it? In May. I think it was May. We didn't make a show in June.
Yes, it was May. We didn't do it last month.
And we have 3 topics left from the last show. Number 1, is there a need to learn more about how to talk about our art or about art in general, my mojos, and how to comment on art in a deeply analytical way? And that is kind of your realm, right, Fern? And then, of course, how can we do that in case we decide that there is a need? So how can we learn to do that? And another thing, very interesting topic, as I think, how to get our art out in terms of, is there value in submitting photos to supporting sites and or taking part in photo competition? So I think this will be a packed show, and as usual, we will start with question, and I'm running out of questions. So if you have questions that you want us to be to answer at the beginning of the show, then please send them either to me. Well, send them to me because I'm doing all the stuff behind the scenes to present Fern in the best possible light, because apparently,
that's impossible,
as we all have seen right now, he's incapable of doing that himself. Last question that I have on my list when we're talking about photography, is there one thing that you feel is underrated in photography? Last time we talked about if there's something that you feel is overrated. Today, if there's something that you feel is underrated. Yes, you. Your show.
Yeah, the whole critiquing, talking about, which goes back to what we talked about, which we went off the rails talking about the why we as a community, broadly, very broadly, globally, I would say almost focus on the technical and shy away from the critiques and the talking and learning about the art itself, as far as how we what we were just talking about before we went on, how we express our view and so on, and learning really to learning to see art, learning to see the learning photography. I just discovered Chase Jarvis, I think is his name. YouTube channel. I like some of the stuff, a bit high energy for me, but and coming from me, that's, but good stuff. And what I noticed, he did have send in your critiques and send in some photos, and he would critique them. And what I noticed was that the number of views and the number of likes for that, because I watched several of his posts in a row, had the lowest number of views and by 50%, I think, or 25 or something like that, for that one, as opposed to everything else. And he doesn't even talk that much about the technical. He's going the route of Sean Tucker and David Dushman, who focus more on the personal side of it, and sometimes Ted Forbes. So the question I keep going back to is, what are we afraid of? Why do we shy away from this? When really it's so crucial, because, and I think, I don't know if it was you or someone, but in the conversations about this upcoming event, somebody said, that they learned so much about looking at other people's photos to help them to understand their own photos and evaluate and feel more comfortable with what they release and why they throw it out into the wild and post it on Tumblr and post it on, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that we've talked about so often, that by learning and looking at others' work, we learn also how to evaluate our own. And so I don't understand what we're afraid of and why we don't just learn the basics, or what is it that we want to learn. I think it was B.W. Whitney who said in the comments, I don't know how to look at this stuff. And I mean yeah. So stop me. You go ahead and say something.
No, absolutely, and I think, and that's kind of the thing with PWS, right? When we don't do photo critiques, so this is not, we don't critique photos. What we add that little comment why we love a certain photo, which is by definition a critique, but and that's when I asked in the past about almost everyone that I asked whether they want to join the blog. Almost everyone said, "Well, no, see, I can't do that. I can't write anything about a photo." And that's what I said. You don't need to write anything about photos or something about photos. You just need to write why you like a certain shot. It's not about, we don't do photo critiques in that sense. What we do is write a comment why we like a certain shot, and if you like a shot, well, why do you like it? And then put that in words. And that's, I think, the there's not so much more to that, to be very honest. Of course it helps if you know have a bit of a background, like you do, and like in another way I do, because it helps to put in words what exactly we like. But for me, it's the same. I see a shot or I see a photo and I say, oh, I like it, or I say, I don't like it. And in both cases, and that's for me personally the most interesting part of that. So I see three types of photos: photos that I like, photos that I don't like, and photos that I'm indifferent about. And so those that I like, I try to figure out why I like them. What exactly is it that I like about that shot? And if I don't like them, I do the same. And it's often, for me, it's often much harder to find out why I don't like a certain photo. And so it's much more valuable for my own work, because I see, okay, something doesn't fit. And that's I know you're a fan of that as well, this kind of um, drawing parallels to other genre or other art forms. And I lately read an ask that, because Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite authors, has a blog on Tumblr, and I follow that blog, and he had an ask about becoming a professional writer. And it was also about writing critiquing. And he said, and I loved that answer, because he said, if you basically same stuff that we we say about photography, right? Just do it, just write, and then give your written stuff, your writings, to people you trust and people whose opinion you value. And then, and that was kind of an aha moment for me. And he said, if someone tells you, well, something doesn't fit for me, something doesn't feel quite right, then they are most certainly right in that. And if someone can absolutely immediately pinpoint what's wrong with your writing, they're always wrong. Which I found very interesting, because if people, and that's putting that that on photography, if people immediately jump on a mistake, what do? They analyze a photo first and foremost because of photography rules, of composition rules, or whatever there is, right? But if that is what people are first and foremost look for, then, well, of course we can draw something out of that and say, okay, apparently it's so distracting to some people that what I wanted to transport, to communicate with that photo doesn't get through. So it's a hint, but it becomes much more interesting if people say, well, something doesn't really fit for me, and then trying to find out what it is. That's when you really learn, because then you look closer and then you really analyze the shot and you say, okay, what is it that I wanted to do? How does that come across, and how that did this come across? How did this transport, and or how did that not transport? So yeah, I don't know how I started, but I think I will end now.
Yeah. No, but it's funny because the couple of things that came to my mind, and hopefully I'll remember. One of them is when you talked about other genres and stuff like that, and it's funny because I know Chase Jarvis mentioned it in his review video that I saw, and we've talked about it, and it's mentioned by other folks on YouTube and elsewhere, about the fact that yes, this is your art form, photography, but Well, getting back to B.W. Whitney's comment about, having a hard time and not knowing what to do. One of the things that started me off on this journey of being of constantly perfecting, and I'm always learning, and I'm always looking, and maybe that's the other part of it too. That the other two times I tried photography, I thought, "Oh, I'll get the camera and I'm going to be, Helmut Newton, or I'm going to be Ansel Adams." Not so much. You have to learn, you have to study, and there's so much in just the appreciation of looking at a piece of art. But the bottom line is that all of the visual arts share in different ways the 6 or 7 elements of art, which are line, color, form, balance, texture, space. I think there's, and there maybe, I mean, depends on where you look, but if you look up the elements of art, you will see pretty much that list. And I remember when I was in school, when we were still going to school in caves, and you rode your little mini dinosaur to class, in the only art, well, in one of the 2 art classes I ever took, because I did try painting, and I was, that was one of the first things you learn. These are the basic things. You don't have to have everything in your pictures, in your paintings, but you do have to have some of these elements to make whatever is there visually interesting. And that's one of the things I still look at today when I look at something visual, whether it's motion pictures or sculpture or anything that's visual. What elements does it have? How do they work together or not? And sometimes they're not working together. Makes it work. You know what I mean? But it's really fascinating to me that while thinking about this after reading that comment, that I started to realize that it really boils down to something that's very basic and that's cross genre and visual art form. Oh, somebody's calling me. No, my mother. And I think that's maybe what we need to start thinking about and maybe talking about every once in a while. It's like that it's really that it's not that difficult, and if you start small with something that basic, it doesn't become that difficult. And it's also practice. It doesn't just come, I mean, it doesn't just come immediately. Are there any comments or anything? Is anybody? No, it's just you and me. Okay.
Nobody's on the chat today. Nobody's
on the chat. That's fine. So
easy. But then go what? Well,
maybe it goes back to the fact that it's the topic and nobody cares. But that's the other thing. I have to say, I'm not going to stop talking about this, and I'm not going to stop. And I will also say, and we need to talk about this. We did do some critiques about a year and a half ago, and I still have some that we did that I never posted because of depression and anxiety and huge doubts about it all of a sudden. But I also think somehow, whether it's you or me or just me, or we invite somebody, I think it's something we should start doing like this on a regular basis again, because we did do it a couple of times. But I will admit, I was the one handling that, and I just lost it. And even now I'm having anxiety attacks talking about it because I feel really guilty about it. But just because we only get 3 people who are watching this, or nobody watches it, that's not the point. Someone out there will learn from this.
We have a lot of, well, we don't, I don't know if you're talking about this conversation or these conversations, or about the
in general
conversations we have. I mean, I think it's amazing when I look at the views later. Well, not so many people watch this stuff live. Well, I think it's yeah, I don't like saying numbers, but when I look at the channel on the YouTube channel and I see how many views these videos have, and when I got and even if I mean if only people watch this and tell us, I do that for, and I wrote that on as a comment on BW Whitney's reply. I do this mainly for my own. I mean, I'm a selfish bastard. I enjoy this a lot, and I learn a lot by doing this, and so I will do that. Continue doing that, and if nobody watches, then well, if nobody watches, then we will certainly not stream that anymore, or put that on YouTube. But I will certainly, I guess you think the same. I will certainly continue talking about photography, and so if just 5 people or 2 people or 10 people enjoy that, what we're doing, and nobody's forced to watch that. So, um, but well, I can say I'm overwhelmed by the quote unquote success of this. Of course, I mean my channel is super small, and but it's not why I do that, and I know that you're the same, and so yeah, maybe we should do the photo critique. Maybe we can implement the photo critiquing into this conversation, like adding one. Don't have to We don't have to critique like 10 photos or 5 photos like we did, and maybe just 1 or 2 and add that directly after the show. I don't know. You
And
out.
keep the critiques short, because that's the other thing that I was thinking about. Sometimes, I mean, granted, it was great and weak. I would tease out ideas, but really, I think part of the problem may be, and sorry, y'all, if anybody's listening or watches later that we're talking about this, but I think and we can keep talking about this later, but I think there's also just the attention span, and not everybody's going to be interested in that in-depth a critique. Or maybe we can do, here's the TLDR version, really short, here's our longer conversation. We can do that too. But the bottom line is, I see an indifference. As a matter of fact, and I've mentioned this before, Photo Stoppers, the website, which has really good stuff for free, and they also have all kinds of courses and blah 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 that they do. And for a while they were doing critiquing the community, and I think they stopped like 9 months ago, because apparently there was just not, I mean, some people were sending in their work, but I'm assuming the viewership just wasn't there. And from what I could see, it really wasn't. I'll give you another example. I joined a Facebook group, I'm not going to mention any names, that supposedly is for this kind of thing that we're talking about. People more than just hitting a like or saying, oh, this is gorgeous, or this is great, or this sucks, but where really you could exchange ideas. And again, I don't know if it's my photography, which is not mainstream. I usually, lately I've had all these pictures of, walls and shadows and light, and a few lines and some paint. But I got very little commentary, and I got, even more surprising, almost no commentary on the piece I wrote for this thing for work, about how photography is in a sense almost therapeutic for me, and how I'm going to get emotional, but the whole portrait thing, and taking pictures of people on the street, and how and there was no, which again I wasn't expecting, hearts and flowers and just a flood, but it was almost dead silence.
I give you flowers. No, they're not yours. Not yours.
You know
Not.
what I mean? It's just so I'm not going to stop, and I haven't stopped. But again, going back to the whole Tumblr community thing, I got more of a reaction from the folks on Tumblr. And again, I think I got maybe 20 notes on my sharing that. But still, I got more of a personal reaction and communication about that topic related to photography on Tumblr than I did on a community that's supposed to be based on that kind of communication. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't gone back, because it's like, you know, I was there for like 3 months and nothing. Then what am I doing here? I obviously don't fit. I mean, I think 3 months is enough time, but it's all of this that constantly makes me think, what is it that we as a collective group are afraid of? Because that's the only thing that I can think of. What are we afraid of? Like you said, oh, I don't want to be in PWS because I don't want to comment. What are we afraid of?
Well, the thing is, I guess this is one thing that nobody really knows, or well, let's put it differently. I don't know. There are photos out there that I like. Right when I scroll down my dash or go through the tags, I see photos that I really like. Okay, and it's easy to write something that you like, right? Say, okay, I like that, but it takes time to sit down and to really think about something substantial that you want to communicate. It's maybe it's something that we all, me included, just sit here and say, yeah, I like that, I like that, I don't like that, but I like that, and just want to see things that we like and not really do. That's why we click that heart button.
Right.
And so I don't know when I see a photo, because I'm not so. There are a handful of people that I know a bit better and that I frequently communicate with. But to be honest, I don't know if any of those. Well, apart from you, I know that you would appreciate that, and I still don't do it. Hmm, I should do it, but I don't know if people are really open to receive um, honest critique. And I think this is also something that there's a difference between criticism and critique, and I don't think that many people are aware of that distinction. And so many people shy away from critiquing something because they say, "How? Who am I? Why would I criticize something?" So that's another thing. And commenting is, I like that or I don't like that. And for me, very often, and that's why one reason why I love working on PWS, because this is a platform that is now after almost 5 years established as a blog. Is it 5 years? Yeah, darn.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yes. And that's just what we do. And so I know I can do that on PWS, and people are happy because they also get a bit of exposure for their photos. But I'm never sure if people would really appreciate it if I write something like, "Oh, I like this and I like that" on my. It is stupid because I know that I would appreciate it if people do that, and a lot of people do that. Well, some people do that, and every comment makes me super happy. So that's maybe I should kick myself in the behind and do that more often. But if talking about, I see that when I scroll down the tags, because I mostly reblog from the tags, I rarely reblog from my dash to PWS. There are often photos that I think I like that shot, but this shot would be, or this photo would be, in my opinion. And I think that is the crucial point. Why would anyone care about my opinion why I don't like a certain shot or a certain photo. And that's unless if they quote unquote invite me to give my opinion, which I gladly do if someone asks me about my opinion, but that's just my opinion. So why would anyone be interested in why I don't like a certain shot? And to be very honest, I don't. I'm super honest here. I don't give a damn if anyone doesn't like my photos. I'm happy if they do. If they don't like them, then and they don't like them for a certain reason, and they think they could give me advice, and I'm open for advice, absolutely open for advice. They could give me advice on how I can improve my photography. Yeah, sure, but um, bring it on. But yeah, I think there's this big wall that we have, because I don't know people well enough to say or to be sure that they'd appreciate it, and I don't want to alienate anyone by telling them I don't like that photo because.
Right. Well, but I think so. There's a couple of things. First of all, what it's funny what you said about the commenting. What I do, I will only carajo. I will only in replies or sometimes in private messaging. I will only make positive comments, the uninvited ones. And if it's a picture, which we've talked about before, and actually Chase Jarvis called it the makes me stop and look factor, which we've talked about that. If a picture makes me stop and look, stop and think, then already there's something there. Whether it's because it's so bad or so good, that's a big plus check on the. But if it is so if it's a picture that I like, I will either, like I said, in the replies, or which I've done with you, I think, but we talk more, so it's not that, but I'll do that. I'll just send a brief, I like the composition, I like this, I like how this is here, that's that. What has been really interesting, and I will admit, I know that because of my, excuse me, my academic background and my doing some teaching in this stuff and so on, every so often, and a lot, I don't want to say like half the times, but quite often, what happens is, I'll get a response from the photographer saying, thank you, because that was exactly what I intended, or that's exactly what attracted me, or you know what I mean? So I seem to, for whatever reason, sometimes, but enough where I'm commenting on it. I see what the photographer saw, which I will admit feels kind of good, because it's like, okay, at least I'm not talking bullshit. Not that I don't, but at that moment. So there's that. There's the fact that it's complementary. It's always complementary. When we were doing the critiques a couple of times, since it was just critique my pictures, then if it was negative, it was negative. If it was positive, it was positive. And I do remember one photo that we critiqued, and the only thing that we both agreed on was that it should be cropped.
How was that from the cave, the waterfall?
No, that was one of them, but there was another one. There was the one with the pier, and I think it was a dove or something like that. Not a dove, a swan or something, or there was some birds, and I think it was black and white. And the photographer came back and said, thank you, because I wasn't sure, blah, blah, blah. But again, this was asked for, I will say.
Right.
Now what I rarely,
sorry? Comments on the chat. Michael wrote, the thing about Tumblr and us as photographers is that we are mostly amateurs and we take pictures for fun. Still, we publish them and therefore have to live with critique. But critique for me is more for art as professional art. That's why I only mention positive aspects about pictures of others.
Yeah, exactly. That I mean, I think whether we're amateur, I personally don't use that distinction, because in the end we are, as you said, who was it that said that?
Heiko. Heiko's
Oh,
calling.
Heiko. Yeah. Oh, well, it's Heiko. Who cares? No. The thing, the thing with that, Heiko, is that that distinction between professional and not, like you said, we're putting our not just our photos. By putting our photos, we're putting ourselves out there, because whether I think we're professional or not, we are doing this usually because we love it. Sometimes you talk to professionals, they don't love it so much after a while.
What TJ said, right? In when your staff photographer TJ was
Oh
on,
yeah.
and I really I found it, because that's that I felt or feel the same. He said when he's doing something for work as an assignment, it's a job, and
Right.
if he does something for himself, then it's for himself, right? And there's more heart and soul in that. Of course,
Right.
everyone is different, and I'm certainly not every photographer slash artist the same. But I felt the same, or I feel the same whenever I do something as a
Right.
job. Then because you're bound to certain restrictions that are put on you, and this
But
in
you're still
very
putting
rare
yourself.
cases you have
You're
a carte
you're
blanche.
still doing that. You're still doing that, and there's still a part of you in that. I mean, granted, yes, you're not as invested. I get that. Um, but the bottom line is, so to me, the whole idea of, and again, as Heiko said, which is what I was saying, also the positive aspect, just to be, because I remember reading about 5 years ago on Tumblr, somebody who posted, it's more than just saying I liked it or doing the heart, which has been said many times. So since I know how to do it, and since I'm not afraid, and I don't think I've yet to hear anybody say, you're an idiot, shut up, I don't want to hear your opinion. I will do a positive
That's
comment.
not
Now,
Tumblr
here's a
style. Tumblr style is blocking you without telling you why. Not that that ever happened to me, but Tumblrers are either attacking you or they silence.
that's fine. I will admit, that's one of the things I don't have, and I think you'll get attacked no matter what medium you're on.
Of course.
But that's fine. The trolls, I have no time.
Okay.
And I don't think
Heiko
my,
just wrote, can you please shut up, Fern? That's in the chat. Wasn't by me. That's what Heiko wrote.
you paid him. I'm being nice to Heiko. I'm
Heiko,
actually agreeing.
Heiko, I just want to say one thing. October.
Oh, that nothing else. But yeah, the positive critiquing, the positive communication. Let's not call it critiquing. I like this because of this and this and this. A couple of lines, no fuss, no muss. I like I said, I've yet now. The secret that I was going to say before Heiko so rudely interrupted me was that when I make that kind of a comment for someone on my dashboard, or if I'm looking through photographers on Tumblr, that means that picture will go into Luxlit and will get reblogged. I've never really it's not a rule or anything, and it doesn't always have to be. Sometimes I'll reblog stuff I don't comment on, but if you get a comment, then it's 99% of the time going into Luxlit.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's funny. And that's one thing, indeed, why I'm so super. I have to admit, I comment very, very rarely, and because, but that's maybe the bad experience I made. That whenever I comment something, people expect their photos to show up on PWS, and that's why I rarely comment. And I prefer to make the comment because well, I'm part of that blog that comments on photos, so I prefer to do that on PWS. So that's why I rarely
Right.
comment on photos on the replies, right? So interesting that it's the
Right.
other way around, but it's a different blog.
So and then yeah, it's a totally different blog. So then the other thing is, for the photographers on, I've had maybe three times. Well, three times that someone has asked me, and specifically with one photographer, what do you think of my photography? Blah blah blah, and then there was once kind of, but it wasn't really so that we were, but but I will not comment. The most I'll say is, like we don't reblog paintings, for example. You know what I mean? Or like one person who asked, how, so who said I haven't been reblogged. I'm like, well, your blog has more reblogs than original photographs, and sometimes it's hard to tell.
Mm.
And so no. Um, but I did have one photographer specifically and I actually want to reply again and explain even further and get even more technical as to why some of the photographs weren't being accepted. But that's been because, again, it was asked for. I will totally agree. And I was very, not brutal in the sense of mean, but I was very accurate, let's put it that way, or very specific in what I pointed out. And it was a great conversation, which is why I feel very comfortable going back and adding more. There was one other photographer who uh, sent in some photographs that I did comment on because they were not. Some of y'all won't. Nobody will figure this out, but it was specifically pictures of a location that is always shown and photographed in very stereotypical ways. And these photographs were completely outside the norm to the point where I couldn't tell that it was this specific location. So I did mention it to that photographer and had a conversation about that. And the photographs were stunning, by the way, as well. But I have certain, you know what I mean? Like you, I have certain criteria as to when and how I'll communicate. But I can't think of anyone who would be upset if you sent a brief positive comment. Well, there is one person who I have said, this is really gorgeous, blah, 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 blah. This is art. And I'll do this just to bug them every once in a while, and they freak out. And it's like, no, not that word. I can't deal with that word, which is again a whole other topic that we've talked about before. But yeah, I don't get it, and I mean I get the fear that we're not professional, we're not this, we're not that. I feel that way, and that for a while I wasn't even certain I even want to keep doing this because I was like, dude, I don't know shit. But you know what? So what? You know a lot more than I do. Oh God, what are you eating?
Jello.
Mm.
No, I
Sadly,
don't.
it's not vegan.
Pardon?
Sadly, it's not vegan.
No, it's not. Well, maybe it is. No, it isn't.
Oh, well, no, it's made from gelatin.
I don't think that I know more than you. I know other things than you do, and you know
Yes.
a whole lot more on different subjects than I do. So I
Are you
have.
calling me old?
Hmm?
Are you calling me old?
Yes, all of
Are
the
you
time,
calling me old?
all of the time, but not right now. Because you are. Actually, why do I even call you old? I mean, everyone can see that. And just look this one. Okay.
Wait, wait.
No, the thing is, now I lost what I wanted to say. Um, I have no idea about um the history. photography. I only know like 3, 4 names of famous photographers. I mean, you can ask me everything about filmmaking because that's what I was trained for, right? So I probably can tell you most of the stuff that most other people don't know. But I know how to make pictures, and because that's what I what I not only was trained for, but what I also do or have been doing like for 10 years now. There's and I can tell you a lot of technical stuff, which, as we also talked before we started streaming, in my opinion, everything on a technical side that you need to know for photography, and I know that many professional photographers will now wait for me in dark alleys and beat me with a stick, and I say that, but I'm absolutely convinced, just as in filmmaking or videography or everything you need to know from a technical side can be learned in like 4 hours, and the rest is and that's what one of my professors in film school told us, and he's absolutely correct with that, and that's what I learned in filmmaking. I mean, filmmaking is a process that includes 1,000,007 people for every project, right? So we have a specialist for every department. So why is that? Because it's not about the technical side, it's about the final product. And so we have a specialist for sound, we have a specialist for light, we have a specialist for color grading, we have a specialist for the camera, sometimes we have a camera director of photography, and we have a camera operator, so 2 people, and sometimes we have even 3 or 4 because there's a different camera that only a certain person can operate. So it's about the final product. So what's and in filmmaking, why a certain director is chosen for a film is because of his vision and not because of his skills. And because the skills you can, and that's what you learn, and it's one of these things that nobody tells you unless you pay a whole lot of money for going to film school or photography school or everything, whatever, is that you can buy skill if you're professional. In photography, it's a tad differently, because if you're the photographer, then you can't buy the skill. But in filmmaking, is you can buy skill because you just simply pay people for creating your vision. But the vision is what's fine, and that is
Yes.
what where your money is. And as a photographer, it's your it's what you want to show. It's your view on the world, and that's what every person is different. That's what makes every photographer unique. No matter if they use the same camera or a different camera, no matter if they shoot color or black and white, no matter if they shoot analog or digital, their view on the world, and that's the amazing thing about photography for me personally, is that it's the way to show your world, to show other people what's in your mind, what's in your heart, what's in your soul, because that's what you can do. And that's the amazing thing, my personal opinion, about digital photography, because you can do everything. You don't have to rely
Yes.
on the chemical. It's like I had to laugh lately because I sat here, I scrolled down, well, my dash, and no, it wasn't even on Tumblr. It was somewhere else. Somewhere else. We did some research for stuff, whatever. And I read that comment. So, my analog camera doesn't need batteries, so that's why I shoot analog. And it's like, yeah, all right. I prefer to charge my batteries and not go to the drugstore and buy film every day I want to go. See, just as if that were an argument for analog photography, that my analog camera doesn't need batteries. So what? You have to buy film, you have to develop film, or get it, whatever. The thing is, that's the great thing about digital photography for me personally, is that I can create exactly what I want to create without the help of any other person, just with my camera, because I can do a lot of settings in my camera, right? And then, in case that isn't sufficient, I can use Photoshop or
Okay.
Lightroom or whatever. So photography is the way to show your world, and that's what I personally think is the one of the greatest things ever.
So I'm glad you went back to that, because one of the things, and which really is going to go back to the learning how to discuss images, because again, this is going to stick with me. It's always going to be a sticking point, I think. Several of the photographers who are on YouTube and others that I watched at some point discuss your personal style. And one of the things that a couple of them have mentioned, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, was that what you were talking about, that you can buy talent. As a photographer, if you are going, even if you're an amateur, even if you're, for example, a perfect example of an amateur photographer who's still also not, out here on campus during graduation, you will see around campus these little posted, printed up. Oh, if you need a graduate, photo photographer for your graduation pictures, contact me. And why is that person going to choose you? That person is going to go to your website, let's say, going to look at your photographs and see your style. And they're going to go, just like a director or a cinematographer, director of photography, designer, whatever, the costume designer or the production designer. The client is going to choose who suits the vision of that style, and that's what they're going to accept. So the whole point of understanding how we discuss our work, even if we're amateurs, goes back to and again, David Duchemin and others, but David Duchemin's course that I signed up for. One of the things I like is that he will tell you, let's talk about this aspect of photography, and then let's look at the masters, and let's look at, and again, it's a critique in a sense of that brief about that person's body of work and some of the things to look for and all that kind of stuff. And that helps me as a photographer, as an amateur, hopefully wanting to start getting to sell my work, because some of it apparently is good. Even if it doesn't get a lot of notes sometimes. The knowing where you fit in, and what you want to do and what you can do, the more familiar you are with what it is you're looking at, even in your own work, and how it's affecting you, will only make you a more powerful photographer. Which is why critiques, are really good, because they show you what another person sees and the specifics of what they see. And it can, which is why Duchemin is so great, and some of the others who point out master photographers and what they do and don't do. So the whole bottom line is, it goes back to the learning. It goes back to that. That really, if you want to be good, no matter what kind of photographer you want to be, and I will definitely never be, a traditional, event photographer or wedding photographer, that kind of thing. I'm not. I'm an art photographer with a very narrow niche, if you will. Although I'm also, I think, getting better at portraits. Although I think my portraits will never be as good as as I would like them to be. But that's a whole other topic. But again, even that, I'm learning, I'm looking, and I know how to discuss this stuff, so that if I'm talking to you and you're critiquing my work, I also understand what it is that you're saying. And that's the other part of, thank you, of knowing how to deal with all this stuff, is that when you're talking to someone, for example, like the f-stoppers critique the community, where the two photographers would sit down and critique pictures. It's not just a matter of hearing what they have to say, but if you don't really understand the concept of leading lines, which I think most of us do, and why it's important to have a leading line go in this direction or that direction, they might as well be speaking a foreign language to you. You don't really know what it is that they're trying to say. So in a sense, I guess maybe that I just answered part of my question, and Heiko answered it too. Some of us see ourselves as amateurs, and we don't think that's important, which is fine. But a lot of us do think it's important enough when we get reblogged, which goes to one of the other points in, let's say, photos worth seeing, or like I did. The first time I was reblogged was back when Lens Blur was the only the only photo reblog site, and I was shocked that anybody thought one of my pictures of the Death Star, one of the buildings here on campus, was so good that they wanted to share it with the world. And I'm an amateur. I don't, so even for us as amateurs, there's that excitement. And so anyway, you go ahead. I get stuck. What?
It's kind of funny. I just because you said when your first photo was reblogged by Lens Blur, one of the first photos that, and it's the same with me back then. There was Lens Blur and I think two other blogs, and one of the first photos that I posted that was reblogged by Lens Blur is what I actually have here on my wall. Not because Lens Blur reblogged that photo, but because I really think this is one of my best photos that I ever made. And so this is what you said. Wow, someone thinks the stuff that I do is cool, or to use PWS language, worth seeing. So yeah, that's what you said. I mean, no, I think we talked. I had a lot. I would have a lot to talk about that, but let's, because we're already talking almost an hour. Let's. I think we both made our position clear, that we both think that even though maybe, well, at least in my case, I don't do that by far, not often. I really have to kick my butt for doing that more. How can we learn to talk about our art, or about art in general, in a more deeply analytical way? I actually have something that helped me, which has nothing to do with photography at all. But I have it because my bookshelf, one of my bookshelves, I have a lot of bookshelves, is directly behind my computer, and there's all my important books are in there. So I have 5 bookshelves with crap, and 1 bookshelf with important stuff. And I actually have an encyclopedia about the different styles of art. I once bought that, very small, and it's not only photography, not only paintings, but also sculptures, architecture, different how do you say, decades of, well, no, how do you say in English? Periods, yes, different periods. And it's fascinating. Of course I didn't read them all, but just skimming through them, seeing how stuff, it's like statues and paintings and architecture, how different people saw or looked at their surroundings, and that's what I found extremely valuable to suddenly realize, because I should have realized it much earlier, during school, being in my art classes. I mean, I majored in art. Uh, so and school, I don't know. This German school system is a bit different than the American or the English school system or everywhere else around the world. So we had, and it's even different now than it was a million years ago when I graduated. But I actually have a degree in art, so whatever. Cartoons, by the way, and yeah, thank you. And so
Cartoons? You mean self-portraits?
yeah, well, also with self-portraits. Um, then later, I because I became lazy, I took photos, right? And that's the actual reason why I started photography. No, it's not. Um, whatever. When I What I wanted to say is what made the real difference for me was to suddenly realize that we always had, and the more we go back in art history, the more we have abstraction. And breaking everything, it's a very fascinating thing. The further we go back, we have extremely abstract pictures, and then things become more realistic, more realistic, more realistic, more realistic. And then suddenly and that was very late, just a couple, well, maybe like 150 years ago or something, when everything started to become more abstract again. And that's maybe because, and I'm sure, I know actually, that this all has to do, of course, with photography, because when photography came, it was no problem anymore to really show a photorealistic depiction of the world. And it's especially now with all the current digital cameras and everything, with all the automatic modes, it's one click, and you have um, on your sensor, on your memory card, and later on print the world as you saw it, and that becomes just simply boring over time. And so at least many people do think it's boring. I'm one of them. I don't care for realism at all in my photography. Um, it's the freedom that we have now, even with photography, and that's what I find so fascinating with photography, that you can now not only limit it to the physical side of your camera with lenses, and of course this is already a whole universe what you can do, and that was one of the things that we tried to do or did for years with a No Edit Friday on PWS, which will, by the way, return in a
Uh-oh.
very different way. We will have that again, and we thought, well, no spoilers, but it will definitely come back. Um, what you can do, that was the original idea of No Edit Friday, to say what can you do with a camera alone, no edits whatsoever, just your camera, and no matter analog, digital, whatever, just no edits, picture straight out of camera, which is of course, except for if you have an instant camera, instant analog camera, not possible with an analog camera, but prints are okay. Scans of prints are of course also okay, but no further edits later. And so playing around and finding ways to into abstraction, for example, or showing the world in a very, very different way. Um, and it's always an up and down. There's always a movement and a counter movement. We have photography, which is suddenly the ultimate of photorealism. We have a possibility to record the world as it is, and then of course then comes abstraction, and then photography rises again, and we play around with photography. So it's interesting, and I'm really curious what will happen in the next 15-20 years, because
And then you also have, especially starting, I want to say like in the 20s, in photography, the movement to abstraction itself, with
yeah.
people like M.I.A. and that whole group. I wanted to say, because you brought up, oh fuck, oh, I wanted to go back to your one of your first points about, for what we were talking about that you brought up later, that really to work a camera, to take a picture, all you need to know is the aperture, f-stop, ISO, and what was the other one?
Exposure time.
Exposure time. So the guy who I'm going to go see his photographs tonight, that I posted on my Tumblr, just his website and so on. He works, and I originally met him because I went to drop off. I gave away to the photo department here my little Fuji, which is a wonderful camera, by the way, but I wasn't using it because I got the Sony, and it's just, why am I going to keep that camera? So I went, I took it in, because the students need, having been, I get it. So anyway, and so the guy who was there, who is the technician basically, and all, he's also a photographer, and we got to talking, and he wanted to do a comparison between his, I think he's got a 5D Canon, one of the top of the line Canons. And he wanted to do a comparison, a studio comparison with my Sony. And I said, sure, I'll bring it in. And so he wound up doing a comparison between the Fuji, which is, again, an excellent camera, and it's an older one. It's the S, the Canon, and my camera. What was fascinating, he was shooting manual. He was able to get into the settings. Now, what was difficult was the fact that the different cameras, again, because they're digital, the way you adjust the settings and the menus can be a little confusing. And then what made it even more interesting was that for some reason with my Sony, he was using the electronic viewfinder, and depending on what setting he had it on for the aperture, was it the aperture or the f-stop? He couldn't see anything through the viewfinder. Huh?
Aperture is f-stop.
So which is the other one?
Exposure time.
Oh, the aperture. That's right. Aperture is f-stop. So see, again, I get it when I've got the camera.
I think, what about making an episode about the exposure triangle? So Pete explains the exposure triangle to Fern. So
I thought, didn't you already do that?
Did I do that?
I think so. Not here, but I didn't you do that a while back?
We can do that. That's a question for the chat, or for everyone who watches that. Please comment on that if you want us. And I'm not saying I will do that, because Fern has, and he always says he doesn't know anything, which is just crap. Fern knows a lot.
I know crap. Crap, I know.
If you crap, he knows. If there's an interest that we do, let's say, a technical episode in which we'll talk about really the technical aspects about photography, like the basics, then well, let us know, and surely we will do something like that. I hope you're okay with that, Fern.
Yeah, no. So anyway, that by the way, that was what was really interesting. That basically he had these 3 different cameras from 3 different manufacturers, 3 different types, because one is the fixed lens Fuji, which is just basically 35 millimeter equivalent. The other one was the DSLR, and then my mirrorless. And he was able to take these great pictures. And then when it came to going in and actually looking at the pictures, was when the knowledge of how to look at a photograph came in, because when you're comparing, again, you're critiquing and it was just a really interesting setup, just the white background, well lit, one light of an old movie projector that was black with a wood stripe. So it wound up being really interesting pictures. But you weren't just looking at the quality; you were looking also in a way of that how good a picture did each one of them take. I mean, we weren't just pixel peeping, although I will say he was super impressed with the Sony, because it just the precision was just amazing, which is, I've talked about before. But it was, now that I think about it, that I'm glad we've had this. I was able to see him and what he knew technically and how he applied that. And then when it came to the knowing about art and the elements of art and what to look for, how that also came into play in the whole process of taking, setting up, taking the pictures, and then choosing which ones were the best. You see what I'm saying? So again, I'm bringing this back full circle to our initial question. All right, I'm done.
Can you stand up, Fern?
No, see, now that you're asking me, no.
Chat asks for your non-pants. These are not short. These are underpants.
Well, no, they're not. No, they're gym shorts. And the reason they're this big is that these are the ones I bought. These are extra, extra large. I bought these when I was a size 40 plus.
Extra large. Indeed, they do look extra large.
No, they are extra, extra large. But I've lost. I'm down to a.
Please sit down again.
What? Jesus. Anyway, that's why they're so big too, because they're comfy, but they're not. They're gym shorts. But they're extra, extra large.
Heiko wrote no, and Sharon wrote, thank goodness now. Thank goodness now. No one can hear me scream. Yeah. And he says, thank you.
Oh, righty. Hold on. I'm replying.
By the way, they're really amazing boxer shorts, but okay. But
yeah, no, that's okay.
I wear pants. Just saying. I wear pants.
I'm wearing. Actually, I'll even show you. I'm wearing boxer shorts too. See right there.
I want to see that.
Boxer shorts.
No, we don't want to see
that.
And now my YouTube channel gets viewed probably. Because I have.
Anyway, for those of you who don't know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, I'm done.
Just kidding.
Any questions, comments besides my shorts?
I think the whole chat fainted, except for Sharon. She wrote, "Just kidding, Fern. We love you no matter what you wear." No, Sharon. No.
Oh, don't. No, that's okay.
You can speak for yourself, but please don't speak for the rest of the world. All right. How can we? Angela writes, I think we're speechless now. Yes. Okay, let's go back to photography. How can we learn? And I think the easiest and the best way to learn how to start learning to comment in a deeply analytical way is to really just simply do it. And in terms, as I mentioned already, I think these are the three types of pictures that we like, pictures that we don't like, and pictures that we're indifferent about, and really thinking about why is that? What is it that I don't like at a photo? And that's again an analogy from filmmaking. And I think Martin Scorsese said that about editing, and that's I'm a trained editor, for those who don't know that, video editor. So that was what I majored in film school. There were two opinions again, there's always two different types of people. One of my professors said the best edit in a movie is the one that you don't see. And that is what is largely agreed on or agreed upon, but there are clever edits that make you that you do see as an edit and which just add to the film or to the movie itself. So if that is used for effect, of course, a visible edit can be a great thing, but you have to know when to use it, and that's when experience and when talent, whatever you skill, whatever you how you want to call it, vision comes to play. But from a sheer technical standpoint, the best edit in a movie is the one that you don't see.
Well, but you don't see it in the sense that it's not obtrusive, which goes back to what you said. It doesn't interrupt your interest in the story.
Exactly.
So it's not. I mean, so that's the thing. Because I will say, when I've taught people, about PowerPoint, that's one of my major points is, yeah, I don't want, every slide flying in and exploding and blah, 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 because then I'm not paying attention to you. And I've seen this happen, where somebody asks, oh, that was really great. What were you, what template were you using?
Right.
Instead of asking at the end, what was your topic about? And what about this? So I think that, and I think the same thing applies to a photograph, to photography, and again, to how we understand our photography and where it fits and so on, because, that's how we make the informed decisions. I mean, yes, I mean, I will admit, as much as I talk about, and as much as I'm pushing this, when I'm editing my photos, and we've talked about this a million times, my photos tell me, literally, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing where it wants me to go. And in some ways, and I just did this last night, there were 2 pictures that I went back and re-edited. And this time what I did, what I call my reworked photos that I do every once in a while, for both of them, I actually explained why I re-edited the pictures. Because sometimes when we see changes, hey, that Ansel Adams photo exhibit I went to see at when I turned 60 at the Getty was actually a set of photographs that he had taken earlier in his career that he went back and released in a limited amount, and it was photographs that he went through and tweaked and re-edited them to make them new and to bring in what he saw at that moment that he had not perhaps seen before. So if Ansel Adams can do it, I can do it. But that's the thing. And I wonder, and I don't think it's necessary, and I will, and now I will close with this. I don't think it's necessary to be able to talk about our images in a knowledgeable way when we're that we can critique them, in the sense that a lot of photographers over the years, some of the things I've read that they've said is, if I could explain this and if I could talk about it, then I wouldn't take the picture. That's one of the quotes that I remember. I can't remember. I think it was Mary Ellen Mark. I know it was a woman photographer who said that. So most photographers, I would say, actually, if you ever want to see something really fascinating, watch Henry Cartier-Bresson getting interviewed. And he disliked, at least from what I could tell from a couple of the interviews I saw with Charlie Rose, as a matter of fact, talking about his photography. Yet here was someone who was trained originally in painting and in the arts, who eventually discovered photography. So he knew all of this stuff, but he still didn't maybe like to talk about it or couldn't express it. But the bottom line is, I think whether we can talk about it or not, for our enlightenment and for my increasing enjoyment of photography. And it's the only reason, as I've said a million times, that I haven't left photography this time like I did the last 2 times when I tried with an SLR, is that I'm learning about it. I'm discovering more about it, which helps me to discover more about my own photography and to explore different ways of doing things or not. Um, so yeah, that's really what's even deeper to me about all of this. Which is again one of the questions that we never really got to. How do we learn about photography?
Can I jump in there? Because I
Sure.
disagree. I disagree and I agree. I absolutely
Surprise.
I absolutely agree with your notion that there. I absolutely see the same way. We don't need to be able to analyze in a knowledgeable way, because photography or art in general is not about knowledge. That is art history, right? But I think we have to, or well, the technical side, whatever. But I think it is necessary to, at least if we want to improve, that we can
Yeah.
communicate and talk, if that is our way of communication, or write or whatever, but that we can communicate um, why we like certain things or why we don't like certain things, because only that way we can find an approach to to changing our own photography or art in general, to improving that.
Yeah.
Because if I don't know what I like, and that's when you talk with people about that's what when I was in school in art classes, when our teacher showed us paintings, or went into to exhibitions, and we stood there, and well, I don't like that, and she asked, why, what is it that you don't like? Yeah, I don't know, I don't like it. So I don't understand. So this is stupid because I don't understand it. And so that's, I think we talked about that, or I talked about that a million times already in these conversations. Um, I don't have to like everything that I understand, but I have to understand why I like something or why I don't like something, because only that
Well,
way.
yes, but you can also be honest and say I don't like this because I don't understand it.
But that is already something. If I say I don't understand it, and that's why I don't like it, because not understanding something makes me feel uncomfortable, or I don't know why. This is also a perfectly legit answer to say I don't know. We don't have to have an answer about everything, but I think it is crucial, if we want to improve, to at least try to understand why we like something or why we don't like
Yeah.
something, or what it exactly is that attracts us or that repulses us. And if we're really talking about um, really talk about extremes, I see a lot of pictures or photos every day on Tumblr that, but here we are at being indifferent. Why am I indifferent towards a photo? Is, well, I saw that the subject a million times, and it is presented to me in the same way I've already seen it a million times. So okay, it might be the most gorgeous photo of, I don't know, a flower or whatever, but if it doesn't give me something that I haven't seen already a thousand times, then yeah, I don't care. I'm indifferent towards that. But that is an interesting realization, because that has mainly to do with myself, uh,
Yeah.
because
Well, it always has.
one
Yeah.
who was exposed to that certain type of photography already, and so who am I to say this is a bad photo or this is a good photo, because of my limitations, right? I can't. So I can only say I like that because this and that, ideally knowing why I don't like that or why I like that. But judging a photo because of that is simply not, at least that's how I see it. I cannot say this is bad or this is good. I can say I like it or I don't like it. And ideally, I have a reason why I like it, or I don't like it. But this kindergarten shit. kindergarten argumentation. I don't like it. That's why it's bad. It's just something we should
Oh yeah.
have left behind shortly before we hit puberty, in my personal opinion. But
I
okay.
never hit puberty, so
I know.
anyway. Actually, I've never left puberty, but yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I'm done. Stop drinking. I'm done. That's how you put up with me. You get drunk.
Of course. Since I don't do drugs, I have to drink. And also, it's soccer World Cup. And Soccer World Cup is something that engages everyone around the globe, because soccer and beer, and I don't care for soccer at all, so I'll have to stick to the beer.
Yeah, sorry. Not even the fact that it's cute guys in shorts. No.
Way, well, okay. I don't want to ask what you're going to do today, because
Well, I'm going to clean and then I'm going to that photography show.
Right. It's Christopher Street Day today. Just saying. Didn't you know?
Oh, it is? No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Why do I know that and you don't know that?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I thought that would have been in June, because that's when the Pride Month and the whole oh dear God. Anyway, yeah, the riot, anyway. But yeah, so anyway, no, but maybe it goes back to what you were saying about your taste. You know, it's a totally personal choice, but again, what I want to stress, and I'm going to keep going back to that, which is what you said as well, is that if we want to improve, if we're serious, if we want to be Tumblr famous, or if we want to be sell our prints or whatever, I think our knowing how to understand our arts better, broader sense, and learning about it, and I do disagree with you to a certain point about the one thing that there's a difference between knowing the history of art, for example, like what you talked about, which I think is fascinating with that encyclopedia, and just being able to just very basic ideas of, like, again, the elements of art. The basic elements of art. So it doesn't have to be extensive. I mean, it doesn't have to be encyclopedic, like you in one way and me in the other, but at least have some idea. When you eat a Wendy's hamburger as opposed to a Burger King burger, I can tell you why I like one and not the other. Loved Burger King, hated Wendy's. Because one has more salt and I don't like the bun and blah, 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 and the meat, the texture. If we can do that, if soccer fans know all of the statistics, Umberto Eco, God bless him, if soccer fans around the world know all of the statistics and know all of this stuff about soccer, why don't the photography soccer fans, or the soccer fans who are photographers, take the time to learn as much about our art?
Because
there you go.
Because the soccer fans can play themselves, but
play with themselves. Ew.
Things I just learned from the chat. Pride Parade is on different dates, different cities, so I didn't know that.
Stonewall.
I totally didn't see Mike Mansell's question. How do you know that you're a good photographer? Which is a great question, and plays perfectly well. Perfectly well into that. How do we know whether we're a good photographer or not a good photographer? Well,
it depends on what you're trying to do.
It's so arbitrary and not defined. So how do you know? I have a very simple answer to that question, but maybe you want to answer first.
No. Go ahead. You answer.
I think that I'm a good photographer, and not I don't think that I'm a good photographer. I think I'm a decent.
You are, but okay. Now that you were fishing and you got what you wanted, yes, you're a good photographer.
I'm not fishing for compliments at all. I'm a decent photographer. I don't think that I'm a good photographer, but I think someone is a good photographer if they can do, and it's very, very simple, my very simple definition, if they can do not only what they want to do and exactly get the results, or at least get very close to the results that they want to have, and if these results engage people in create emotions not only in themselves, which is, in my personal opinion, the most important bit of that. Why else would I do what I do if it doesn't do something for me? But if they also manage to evoke reactions in other people, because here we are again with great shot, terrible shot. I don't care about that shot at all. I think as soon as you create a reaction or evoke a reaction, it is not bad, because the only thing that is bad is if you don't evoke any kind of reaction, because then nobody cares. And whether people love or hate your artwork, I think hate is harder, because people are usually more on the side of being indifferent. So really making someone hate your art from their guts is an art form itself. Something that I
And
don't,
it may be what you want to do.
maybe what
It
you
may
want
be
to,
what you want to
I
achieve.
think it's these two parts, being able to create what you had in mind, what you want to do, what makes you happy, and number two, to engage people, to cause reactions. And well, if we're talking about professional photographers who live off their art, well, that's simply people who can satisfy their clients, right? So
Right. But yeah, I totally agree with you. You create because you want to, and it goes back to the hunting for likes and all this stuff. If I don't like it, I'm not gonna. I don't. I mean, it's got to be something I love. That's number one. But then number two is, what do you want to do with that? And I think in the end, it still always goes back. And I've talked about this before. There's several of my pictures that I absolutely love. Several of my pictures that I've gotten great comments on. But I'm not a high count, which we were talking about earlier. I'm not a high count Tumblr. I mean, I have some of my more unusual, I guess, for lack of a better term, photographs that do get some good feedback and stuff, but that aren't mainstream and aren't the kinds of pictures that people give. Now, the Golden Gate Bridge, for example, one photographer I know told me actually it made them cry because it's blah blah blah, and it's a picture of the Golden Gate of all things, which is something every. Uh, but did I communicate with that picture? Do I communicate with my pictures of the Disney concert hall with those swoops and those blue colors that I enhanced? And do people see something in some of those photographs? Because that's the thing. Do you consider yourself a good photographer because your whole body of work is liked and gets a good reaction, or do you understand what Ansel Adams said of, if you have 12 good pictures in 1 year, that's a great crop. I mean, and when you look at Tony Northrup in one of his shows was talking about iconic images, and he said when you look at even the most world-renowned photographers, there's maybe a dozen iconic images in their collections that are the ones that everybody that are iconic, that truly stand out. That doesn't mean that they're not great photographers. So what do you want to do? What do you I think from the technical side, yes, there's ways of judging and so on. But the bottom line is, how do you feel about what you're doing? Where do you want to fit in? Which is why I keep going back to why all of this and understanding the art form and the basics of visual arts is important. Because if you feel doubt about what you're doing and so on, you can better navigate those doubts,
Right.
because you understand, and you know, and you start to find a place where you fit. You know, like I said, I'm not a high count photographer. I do, you know, but yet I'm very satisfied with what I do, and I'm planning on putting up a website, which I've been working on and off for years, to start selling some of my photos, and so, and I know I'm not going to be an event photographer. I'm not going to be, you know, and now I actually feel better, although I'm scared shitless, than I have ever in my photography, and I've been doing this now for like 7 years. So it takes time, and that's the other thing, you know, that, and I think that's one of the things that we've glossed over, but it really takes time. You haven't gotten where you are, Pete, with as much as you know in 6 weeks or a month or a year. And the same with me,
Absolutely.
with what I know.
Here's the
And
thing.
we're still learning.
Absolutely. I learn every day. Even if I don't take photos, I learn about photography because I watch other people or look at other people's photos. What I wanted to say, because I think that really needs to be said, because it can easily be misunderstood what I said, because I didn't mention the technical side or composition side of that, but I think that is a big part in terms of reception. I personally believe, and so those of you who watched older shows that we made probably know that, but I think it's also important to repeat that. I don't believe in that photography rules are important in terms of you need to learn the rules. You need to learn the rules because I see things from the exact opposite side. I think that these are not rules, and I said that a million times in past shows. These are not rules that someone set up and said you have to follow this rule and then this will be a good photograph. But these rules were discovered over time because stuff works. We see that, okay, like your favorite Fern, color contrast works. And so it's not, you need to use color contrast and then you will get a great photo. But a lot of great photos use color contrast because color contrast works. So if we want to enhance our photography, then or improve our photography, then we can, if we know these things, we can look for them more consciously and embed them and include them in our photography or emphasize on them. We say when I see like I don't know, stupid example, but I'm outside and there's a cherry tree and the green leaves and the red cherries. This is a color contrast, and then I can make my camera settings in a way, and use my focal length in a way to get that to make the photo more effective. So using
Right.
that, not following these rules, but using them, and I think this is the real important distinction that I don't know should make. I don't want to set up rules, but I think that's the big difference between a good photographer and a great photographer. A good photographer follows rules. A great photographer uses the rules. If that makes
Well,
sense.
and they're guidelines. I mean, you've always called them guidelines, which and then here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay, so and I'm going to go back to Ansel Adams because I think it's the perfect example. So Ansel Adams, we all know his iconic images, Half Dome, the landscapes are gorgeous. But Ansel Adams also had a studio that was a business where he did portraits and he did location shots. And one of the things that always fascinates me is at UC Davis, they actually paid Ansel Adams to come in and take pictures of the campus and the surrounding area because our campus is huge because it's an agricultural, so there's fields and stuff. And one of the pictures he did 2 pictures. He did one which is really funny to me because it's very much like a picture I took of the same thing, which is the silo with the green, blah, 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 whatever. And then there's also this picture of one of the professors, black and white portrait. And I look at that and I go, really, Ansel? I mean, it's okay, but it's now to most people, not even knowing that it's Ansel Adams, they're going to look at that picture and go, "Oh, that's a good picture. That's a good picture." Blah blah blah. You know, because they recognize it's a person because of the you know. So again, it also depends on who you're focusing on, who your audience is. To me, it's fascinating that, you know, like I'll take pictures of the family and stuff like that. Like when it was my mother's birthday earlier this year, and I posted them on Facebook, and oh, great pictures. And I was going, oh, there's maybe one that's kind of okay, but really they're not good. I mean, this isn't stuff, although I do share stuff like that on Tumblr, but this isn't stuff I'd post on my website to get attention and to sell. You know what I mean? Yet people think it's a good picture. So you're a good photographer because, and then they also think, by the way, oh, you can do this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. So where do you fit in? And I think going back to what you're saying, the guidelines or the rules, if you are familiar with them at least, you can then again decide where it is that you belong. And your community, find, and it's also, and I'm going to go back to the Buddhist thing, which we tend to at some point. The whole idea of what makes a good photographer is like, you know, what makes good art, what makes it, it's fluid, like you were saying with that history. It's fluid over time, it's fluid in locations, it's fluid depending on who your audience is. We, on the one hand, long for and crave exact answers so we can go that way. It ain't gonna happen.
Right.
It is just not going to happen because, again, a lot of variables. So with everything that we share, I think here and others, and again, there's all these people on YouTube. I brought these books up because I went to the library and actually got photography books on Irving Penn. I took back the one of Avedon, and then this one, which is someone who did a project on playwrights, which I think is absolutely stunning photography, I have to say. But this is part of what fascinates me is portraiture, because I think I'm lacking in portraiture, and I want to become what's her name? With the glasses, whose partner was Susan Sontag, who did the pictures for Rolling Stone. Leibovitz. I want to be Annie Leibovitz. I want to be Irving Penn. I want to be Richard Avedon. I'll admit it. I want to be Mary Ellen Mark. I want to be what's her face from the 40s, who took the pictures of the poor people in the West. You know who I'm talking about. You go out there and you learn, and even then you still find where you belong. But an exact answer, you ain't gonna get it. You ain't gonna get it from us. And if somebody's giving you an exact answer, run like a mother. Run.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's
unless it fits what you're looking for, and then I'm gonna shut up.
No.
I'm not saying anything else.
Totally agree. And that's what I meant with the Neil Gaiman quote in the beginning. If someone tells you exactly what, and that's I mean, what you said, everything is fluid and everything is moving all of the time. I mean, what is it that we want to conserve, right? It is dead. So that's why I'm not I'm not conservatist, because I don't want to conserve, because then I'd be dead. I'd rather be a progressive. But then it's just like, just look at conservative people. They just
Okay, no politics.
Okay,
moving on.
I'm not talking about conservatism in politics, but in terms of these people.
Time to go. It's over an hour and a half, and I need to go to the bathroom
again. It's
water, dude, and tea. Hello.
I also had water and beer.
Yeah, but you're young.
Yeah, okay. I'm like 40 years younger than you are. Correct.
Everybody's 40 years younger than I am. Anyway,
kind of fun. It's a funny story. I'm sorry. A colleague, we have a lot of young people at work, like really 18, 19, 20. There's this guy who's like 23. I asked him, so I know. And
I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, better. And he asked me, how old are you? And I said, guess. It's what I always say when people ask me, how old are you? And I said, guess. And he said, well, I would presume um, like 2 or 3 years older than me. And then I laughed really hard. And then I started to date his mother. Okay, then one part of that was a lie. Where are you, Fern? He's gone. Went to the bathroom. Okay. Well, I don't have any other. But that was a funny anecdote, right? Okay. Um, are you back or something? No, you're not. Okay. Now Fern is in the bathroom, and I don't know what. I think I'm going to wrap up the show as long because that can take a while until Fern is back. So yeah, as usual we didn't manage to talk about everything we planned, and this time we only had like 2 topics. Okay, but we've been talking for 1 and 3/4 of an hour, almost 2 hours. So what we have left for the next show, in case we want to talk about that, how to get our art out, is there value in submitting photos to supporting sites and taking part in contests? Of course, there's a value in submitting your photos to supporting sites like Luxlit, and of course also to Photos Worth Seeing. There's always a big value in that. And Fern is back, and he still doesn't wear pants. But okay. So
That is a good question, by the way. But that's a whole other, because I think that's a social media thing too about the submitting. So yes, that's another. That's next time. That's
next,
all I'm saying.
or in case we had on the chat a couple of very positive, or one, at least I saw one, and I'd say a couple, no, two positive comments concerning the technical episode. So maybe we can do that next time. Let's talking a bit about the really basics. Um, and well, maybe that won't, as I said, I don't think there's so much to it. So that would be like half an hour or something. Oh, maybe I can talk an hour. And if we really make this a conversation, then it will take longer. But how to get our art out, is the value in submitting photos to supporting sites and taking part in contests. We will talk about that in one of the future episodes. We've already been almost talking for 2 hours. So even if he just went to the bathroom, I'm sure Fern has to go soon again. So I think that's it for today. That's what he does to me all of the time.
That's what I do to everybody, because that's what I put on Facebook, and since I turned 60, that's how old I am. Okay, so yes, it's a family thing. Yes, sorry.
It's kind of funny that this was exactly how I started this show, that I publicly apologized for Fern's behavior, and I have to do that at the end of the show again.
You
So
sound like my mother, and that's not a compliment. Goodbye, y'all. Thank you. Please think about joining us in our conversation in more than just chat. It's been when we have had other people join us, like when Chris came on and Billy Monday came on and Heiko came on, who's been on a couple of times. When TJ came on and Millman, it's been absolutely wonderful.
Uncle was on as well.
Who?
Uncle T.
Oh, and Tiernan, yes, Uncle T, yes, he was on too. It's always been absolutely great. So please, because I get tired of talking with Pete.
I'm tired. Okay, okay.
I already said it. Too late. Move on. Close it up. Wrap it up.
I just say that because I know it will hurt Fern deeply, and it will really shatter his whole existence, that deep in his heart, he loves me. So thank you all for being part of this evening or day, whatever time zone you're in. It was a blast for us, like every time. So see you, hear you. Please give us your comments about whether you want to have that technical show or not. So far, it seems that people want to see that. So in case you want to let us know, in case you say, no, we don't give a flying about that, also let us know. So thank you all. Bye bye. Till next time. And yeah, I'll stop the broadcast.